Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with the October kit from Create and INKspire. Remember, this is created by our very own Courtney Kreeber, and I'll make sure all of her information is down below. So as always, we're going to create 5 cards from this one kit, but first let's show you what's in the kit and something special. So in this kit, you get your card, and then there are photos of the contents on it, and you also get a sweet treat in each of your packages. Now, what's really cool is she puts a little bit of history in there. We can always learn. Of course, I'm still on my diet, and I can't have any treats, but that's okay. This is awesome. I bring them into work and give them to people. So in the kit, let's start with the cardstock. 2 pieces of Nina Solar White 80-pound crest. 1 piece of 80-pound craft cardstock. You get 4 pieces of foil cardstock by Kaiser Craft. You also are going to get a piece of an Inka-Dinka-Doo masking paper, and something's up with the masking paper. I was watching Courtney's video and she said the same thing. You also get 4 pieces of 6x6 Autumn Maple Pearlescent cardstock by Tonic Studios, 4 different colors. You also get a stencil, and it's a layered stencil. So you're going to get 2 6x6 stencils, and they just go with each other, and they can be separate. A classic has been put into this kit. So the metallic rub-ons paint palette. These things are cool. They look so simple, so basic, but these are just rub-on metallics. It's like a wax type of product. You can use your finger, you can use a sponge dauber, you can use a makeup sponge, you can use the makeup brushes or the Honeybee or the Trinity and whoever else has them out there as well. I did use my fingers just to put them on a piece of cardstock so that you could see what these colors will look like. Each of them do have a pearlescent effect to them, so they just add some nice shimmer to your projects. The stamp set. This month's stamp set is a 6x8 stamp set with the images and the sentiments. Now, what's really cool is what I'm showing you here. Everything that I showed before is the kit when you make the purchase. Remember, it's not a subscription, technically, first come, first serve. But those images that I showed before, just the foiled cardstock, the pearlescent cardstock, and the stencil, that is a mini kit that is available. So I'll make sure everything's linked down below. So let's get started on our first card. Now, I kept a lot of the coloring in, except for the last card. You can refer back to one of the cards on the coloring because I did it the same way. So Courtney, if you haven't already known, has launched her video. So of course, I took a gander at that, and she inspired me when it came to one of her cards. It was the last of her 3 cards that she made when it came to the pattern paper. The foiled and the pearlescents are absolutely beautiful, and they all go together really well. I love what she did with the strips. That inspired me to create a plaid print, so to speak. So I took some of the foils and also some of the pearlescents, and I cut strips, whether 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 an inch. And I am just creating a weave when it comes to these pieces of cardstock. Yes, you did see that right. I do put a little bit of glue underneath my pieces at the top. That's so that this does not shift. It is very easy to clean off my mat. Once I'm done and I lift it, yes, there is a residue of the paper and the glue there. I just use a little bit of alcohol and it comes right up. So never fear. I'm sure someone will say, oh my God, what is she doing? I didn't use the repositional. Now, you don't have to use the glue that I did. You can just use your repositional. As I have this laid out here, it is of course larger than a standard A2 size card front. So I'm just putting some tacks with my glue in there. Just putting little bits of glue drop down so that this will hold its shape as I lift this up off of my craft mat. So I'm just making sure this is pretty much all together. I'm going to lift that up. You can see the residues there going across the top. As I said, very simple to clean. I just come in with my scissors just to cut at different angles because I want it to have the different lengths on each of the sides. I stopped cutting because then once I put this down, I love the effect that it was going off the card front and going down the card front. So I kept it that way. And I'm just going to trim out my excess. I'm going to use my glue on the back and I'm going to place this right down onto the card panel. Now you could also prop this up using some double-sided foam squares, which would give it some great and awesome dimension. Just adding some glue up underneath, and now I'm just going to trim along the sides and make these even with the panel. So I think with the foiled and the pearlescent, I think it just adds a lot of interest to the card as it comes through. Now you can see I am using my scissors to do that, but trust me, I stopped doing that. Wasn't sure why I was doing that. Alcohol works great, and that's how I cleaned that up. Going to continue to use my glue so that I can put this onto my standard A2 size card base, and I am going to use one of the pearlescent colors, the red, to mat this prior to putting it on that standard card base. It will be a top folding card. I grabbed the sentiment thanks, and I'm going to stamp that on a piece of the Nina Solar White cardstock. And then I'm going to use my paper trimmer to cut that out. And if you heard that, that was me throwing my phone across the room. So, okay. I didn't want the stark white for the sentiment. So I just used one of the brushes that I used, go across it with my vintage photo. Of course, you knew the vintage photo was going to make appearance. Just saying. And I just went across the white. And you can see that it just adds a little bit of hint of color. I don't use a blending foam for this because that adds a lot of color, but just using that makeup style brush or our blending brushes just adds enough just to tone that white down just a little bit. Once that's in place, I did use my double-sided foam squares to prop that up and to set that down. For our next card, one of the things that I truly enjoy about this kit is, one, it truly is Courtney. If you've watched her videos, she absolutely enjoys, God bless her, and does beautiful one-layer cards, building those scenes. And you can see in each of her kits, that is what is in here. That is what this is about, using any medium that you like to use to color your images. So masking, huge part of her world. This kit, if you've seen any of my videos, I try to stay away from it. And that is because I hate fussy cutting. I'm just saying. But this, it helps me to practice. It helps me to get more comfortable with it. It helps me to continue to grow and get better with it. So that is one of the things that I truly enjoy, when something is a challenge for me, and this kit does it. So I started out with a small little tiny scene, just with a pumpkin and the 3 leaves, and how, now you could see I was stamping it in the ink on 3 fade out. Obviously I did not clean my stamps. So yeah, I got the full-blown stamped image there, which is fine. That's not a big deal. While I have this in my stamp positioning tool, I'm going to use my Gina K Ink Sage, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment. Again, really didn't want to use a black. So I pulled out my Faber-Castell colored pencils, and I'm going to color the image. Now for this image, I did keep all of the coloring in. My medium of choice is colored pencils. Now, the other thing that this kit challenged me with is alcohol markers. And we will see a project using alcohol markers, but I did use it or them a different way. And you'll see that. So you can see when it comes to, there's a couple different ways that I'll use the colored pencils. I will, no matter what brand they are, I do utilize these like we do our alcohol markers. That concept of either putting your light color down first, then going back in with your dark, your medium, then light, then going back to your medium, then back to your dark. I do that here too. So for this pumpkin, I chose to start with my darkest, then go to my medium shade, then go to my next medium shade, and then finally to where I have that highlight that sits across the center. That helps to give the rounded effect. I'm also using the flick method when it comes to my colored pencils, instead of just having that smooth blend. What I mean by that smooth blend is you're going to see with this leaf that I'm working with now, if you look at the pumpkin, you can see the flicks, the lines. When it comes to this leaf, the smooth blend is, you can see I have a gradient of dark to light. They're the two different ways that I work with my colored pencils. And honestly, it depends upon the image. By allowing for those flicks to be in your image, you're adding texture, you're adding dimension, you're adding a level of interest to it. Not that the gradient doesn't do that as well, but it all depends upon the image. Of when I do that and when I don't. And you can see they purposely and they can beautifully go well together. You don't have to pick one way to do this or the other. It's what looks good and what you're comfortable with. Again, remember, we are to enjoy this process. We are not to stress out over this process. You can see that colors can blend. Again, I'm put a yellow down for this next leaf, then I came in with my lighter green, came in with my darker green going across that yellow, and then I put the orange and the red on the tip. In your colored pencils, can you get a brown? Absolutely you can. As long as we use a light touch and keep going back and forth, we can maintain those colors. Whenever I do start with my colored pencils, it's always with a light hand, and I'm continuously going back and forth. I don't want these colors to go what we call bloom. And what that means is it builds up the wax. If you ever looked at a colored pencil and you turn it, a photo that was colored, you get this shine. That's the bloom. That's the wax coating, and you can't add any more colors to it. I like to continually add and add, and once I know my colors are there, now I'll start adding my pressure to fill in for the tooth of the paper. I hope that makes sense. With the purple, I did start out with my purple and added a little bit of red. I do like to have purple in the fall. I grabbed one of my, now again, these are makeup brushes, but these are actually by Jane Davenport because they're long and double-sided, and I'm going around the edge with the bronze color and just putting that around the border, and then I'm going to do that same thing with the red, just really on the border, just to give it a crisp edge around this panel. Now, I totally forgot to show in this video, I do add just a little bit of a warm alcohol marker. Matter of fact, it was a Copic W3. Just underneath that, just to give it a slight shadow so that it doesn't look like they're floating in the air there. Nothing special though. You'll actually see it in the photos. I'm going to attach this to my standard A2 size card base, and that is our card. For our next card, so, yep, here comes the big image. So, again, laying out, I'm using the Inkadinkado paper, and this is where I saw what Courtney saw. Now, she was more gentle and genteel. Of course, I was not. So wait till you see what I do when it comes to this image. But we keep going. We don't stop. We don't throw it away. We let it go. Remember, that's my phrase. We let it go. We continue. You never know what you can do and see and create. Right? Right. Now, and that's my cat. So you're going to see a lot of masking on this. You're going to see a lot of layering. when you mask, you want to make sure that the pieces you want to be in the front are stamped first. The pieces you want just behind that, you want to stamp those next. And then that last piece that you stamp with all of your masks in place will be the one that's all the way to the back of your card. So that's something that I struggle with. You know, I think I have it down and I have everything where it's placed, but there's always something that I mess up in the stamping. And again, it's okay. We just keep moving with it. I did use every single image except the leaves. I did not add any of the leaves to this. I wanted to stay with the fruit and the veggies and the cornucopia. So the cornucopia is a beautiful size to fill the front of the card, making sure that every image that I have there stamped is masked. Now I'm going to stamp my largest image. And I do stamp that a couple times so that I can get that center. So as I'm pulling off, I did a lot of masks because I kept on using them and using them. I don't like to reuse them. I know it's wasteful, but I get really concerned. But you can see the Inkadinkado, it's really tacky. She's right. Now again, I could have done something wrong with this. I did a lot of stamping over them. I don't know if it was the pressure, but you can see I actually pulled away part of my stamped image. So take your time with this. I've used Inkadinkado products before and always used them, and I have never had this problem with them. But again, I did a lot of stamping over it. I was putting a lot of pressure onto them. And again, when it comes to a mask, you don't want to put too much pressure on it. You know, usually I'm very light-handed, but this time, obviously not. So again, I want to say it's operator's error on this. What I stupidly do is try to, I should have just left it alone. The corn. Had an issue with the corn. What I should have done was not even attempted to restamp this. Thought I had it down. Nope. So I've got a double vision going on there, which, again, I'm okay with. So let's look at how I colored this. So what I did was I chose the light color, or the main color, but it is a light shade for each of my images. And that's all I'm going to use for the alcohol markers. Maybe you're just starting your collection of alcohol markers. Alcohol markers, there are many sets out there at a great price point. There are also what I call the Lamborghini of the alcohol markers. And of course, that's the Copics. Now, the Copics are the most expensive, but of course, they will become your favorite. Absolutely. Now, if I choose an alcohol marker, my favorite alcohol marker are the Altenews. I think I love their brush tip. They are refillable. They are at just a slighter, better price point. Because again, alcohol markers are not my first grab for coloring. Colored pencils are. But I do want to keep practicing. I do want to keep working at it. Not saying that I'm making them my favorite. I just want to get more comfortable with them. So you can see I've taken just basic colors. So this would be like a computer generated picture, so to speak, if you just stop here. But again, as you build up your collection, because when it comes to the Prismacolor alcohol markers and the Copics, you can buy one at a time. Maybe you bought a basic set and they don't have too many colors that you can blend with. That's okay. I'm going to show you a way to use your alcohol markers, the starter sets that you have, but to still be able to create a blend or to create your shadows. It's a very simple process, and you don't need a large set of them either. You can go with the very basic set of 12 or 24, maybe even 36 if you have to have more colors. And what you can basically use with this, and what I'm going to show you, are colored pencils. So the colored pencils that I'm actually going to pull in here, because I'm deciding what green I want to put on the tops of my pear and my apple and my grapes and my pumpkin. I did pull out my polychromos again. And again, you're going to see I'm using one colored pencil, meaning one shade of each of the shades. So I started with the cornucopia. I pulled out a dark brown shade because, again, from one colored pencil, you can have multiple shades from light to dark. It depends upon the pressure that you're putting on with the pencil. So again, I always start out light, and then I continue to build and build and build. So you're going to see that I started out with my alcohol markers, but then I came in with one colored pencil, maybe a secondary depending upon the image, but I'm adding those shaded effects. So again, if you're just, why am I showing you this? Again, if you're just starting out your alcohol marker collection, there are times with these collections you may not be able to get the entire set all at once. It's hundreds, possibly even thousands of dollars in some cases. And that's okay. We can do things slowly. So you can add another element to add to that until you do have your collection. And again, alcohol markers and colored pencils work very well together, and hopefully I'm showing that to you right here. Again, just by adding your shading at your lines and bringing it out to make it lighter will absolutely do wonders for you. Again, a lot of these images, I only used one color of that family for the colored pencil. It's the pumpkin that I actually used two colors. I used a dark red and an orange as I'm looking at this piece here. So even in the darker area, I'm adding a darker value. You can see my hand is way back from the point. That helps me to have light pressure on my pencil. Now again, I may be using mixed terms. I may be using not the proper term when it comes to colored pencils. I will never claim that I am a color pencil artist in any way, shape, or form. I love colored pencils. I use them in my card making. I use them in my journals, and I use them to color with. I do have coloring books that I do enjoy just to sit down and color. And by working through the coloring books, that's how I worked through my shading and how to get that pressure correct and everything. I just sit down and enjoy doing that when I need to clear my head. So again, I might be using very different terms. So please know, I am not saying that this is how color pencil artists work. This is just what I do for mine and my terms. So you can see I've got the cornucopia done as I gabbed there just a little bit. I've done my grapes. I'm now adding in the shading for my stems and leaves on my apple, my pumpkin, and the grapes. I'm now coming in with that same green for when it comes to the corn husks. Yes, Courtney, they are called husks. Just want to let you know that. We have fun, Courtney and I. Sometimes too much fun. Gonna use a lighter green for my pear just to get that shading in there. Now, that looks like a pear to me. You could also make it a squash. Again, that's the beauty of these images. We can make them whatever they want if they are close to two different items. I was contemplating making it a squash, a spaghetti squash. Tried it for the first time recently. It's awesome. Okay, back to the car. So But I knew I was having the yellow in the corn, but unfortunately I probably should have done it because you can see what my corn is. But we fix it. Again, don't let a mistake or a whoopsie or a woohoo, whatever we want to call it. I know we can say other things. I don't want to curse here on the video. We can always cover it. We can always fix it. I hear sometimes people say that, oh, I had to throw it away. Why? Continue. See what you get. I do still color it in, though. I figured maybe it would help. And it didn't. So, again, lots of masking, lots of fussy cutting. Was not going to stop now. So now I'm going to come in with my W5, 3, and 1. I only own... I have the C5 3 in 1, the W5 3 in 1 out of Copics, and I have the pack for Flesh. That's it. When it comes to the Copics. So that's how we fixed it. I took my sentiment like I did before, and I put it right across that center. See? We always can fix. Alright, for our fourth card, had to play with this stencil. I pulled out my favorite Distress ink combo, and I added a new one because of the new colors that are coming out. So we have ground espresso, forest moss, fossilized amber, aged mahogany, and dusty concord, and we are adding crackling campfire. I put a little bit of non-positional tape on the other side, on the underside of my cardstock, and I am using the Neenah 80 pound that comes in the kit, and I added a lot of tape. I have here a piece of cardstock that I laminated that I use when I need a palette this big and want to be able to keep it on to the screen. I'm adding just very little water, not a lot. I'm going to start out with my yellow and just tap the colors in. Again, I am not on Bristol. Again, I am not on watercolor. I am on the Neenah 80 pound cardstock that comes in the kit. You don't want to overwork this, and you don't want a lot of water. So very little. So you're going to get very good pigmented colors as you're doing this. I start with the yellow. I then came in with the dark red. I'm now coming in with campfire, and I'm just adding. So I'm using the stencil as a gauge to hold the watercolor in place. Is it going to be a perfect image? Absolutely not. But look how fast we can get watercolored leaves on a piece of cardstock. Hello. No stamp. Use the stencil. I'm now coming in with some green. I did not come in with this green until I knew it was dry. If you wait for each layer to dry, your green will stay green when it touches the orange. And again, I have all of these colors here. I'm adding splatters of ground espresso and the dusty concord. While it's still damp, they are going to separate out. When it was completely dry, I did those splatters again. I was able to get my stencil up. I'm clearing out the repositional tape. And now I'm going to place down the second layer. And for this, I'm going to use one of my small makeup brushes. And I'm using the Midnight. I believe that's what it was called. The black, obviously. For the stems and the vines. What I love with this, by using these, they're soft. It's not an ink. It's not going to be this harsh line. It's actually going to look like that I used a paintbrush and went over those images. Will these waxes stain your stencil? Absolutely. So just be prepared for that. But it doesn't come off once you wipe them away. And you'll see I come in with a baby wipe right away to wipe these clean. It doesn't come off when you reuse them, but it will stain, so keep that in mind. I did keep the stencil on the piece when I did that wipe away because I wanted to make sure I got those little dots. Got a little violent here as I was pulling off my tape. There we go. But again, it's on the back. We're good. Just keep going with it. Don't stop. I used one of the pearlescent cardstocks, cut it down to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I cut my panel, my watercolor leaf panel, down to 4 by 5 1/4, and now I'll place this onto my standard A2 size card base, which will be top folding. I chose not to add a sentiment to this. We don't always have to do that, and it's ready for any sentiment we want to put on there. So for this last card, I'm showing the masking and the stamping that I did, and something that I realized, okay, when you put ink on 3, fade out ink on a stamp and it doesn't look clean and you wipe it away, it cleans it. I'm just saying. So I'm going to do some no-line no-line pencil coloring here. But yeah, it does. It cleans off all the ink. And this time it actually did work by doing that. But I did want to keep in all of the masking, all of the stamping that I'm doing in. I'm not going to keep all of this coloring. It's very similar to the second card that I did. Same process, pretty much same colors. But this one took me some time to color because I was taking my time. I was also coloring this at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yes, with a cup of coffee. It was very relaxing, but I found I moved slower. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did use up all of the Ink-a-Dink-a-Doo on the cornucopia card when it came to my masks. So I am using my own masks that are in my stash. That's why they are looking a little bit differently there. So you can see I've got some leaves coming out. This is going to focus in on the leaves and the pumpkins. I love the shape of these leaves. I love the shape. I think the pumpkins are a great size. So I just wanted to keep on practicing with my stamping and with my masking and grinding my teeth through fussy cutting these masks. We all have something that we gravitate to, right? This is not mine. But I did really... It's very satisfying to see... I mean, as I'm doing this, and even as I'm watching this for the voiceover, I'm looking at this going, oh my God, this is like a hot mess. How am I keeping any of this straight? How do I know that this is... I mean, it really just... It makes me crazy. And I just realized I have an even number of leaves on there, and I should have stopped. And now that's making me nuts. But it's okay. I let it go. I'm letting it go. Okay. But it does. It looks like it's a hot mess. It looks like it's all over the place. But when you remove those masks, it's like when you heat set something, or... you know, you have that moment, and you do. I actually got that when it comes to this. So this kit really does allow for a lot of those things that maybe you yourself are not comfortable with, or you wanted to give it a try. So here is what the colored piece looks like. So now I'm just playing with the sentiment. Where do I want to put the sentiment? I was thinking right across those 3 pumpkins. Decided against that. I am making sure that I'm using my anti-static tool all over my images as well, because again, that wax could hold on to the embossing powder. I am using my Simon Says clear ink and my Simon Says antique gold ultra fine detail for my sentiment, and I did choose to take it to the bottom of my piece. I will bring in a dry brush to clean away some of the mistakes that I had, and I will heat set that. Of course, I'm looking for the panel, the mat that I created out of the yellow pearlescent cardstock. And you can see I added some dark colored pencil underneath this to ground it. I'm coming in with an eraser that still has a very sharp edge, and I'm taking some of that away. I did not like it. I thought it really took away from it, but I did keep a hint of it there to ground these items along with the sentiment coming in underneath that. Going to place this down onto my standard A2 size card base, and this has now become a landscape card. So that is our last and final card. I do hope you enjoyed the 5 cards that I made from the Create and INKspire kit for October. Again, remember, this is not a subscription, but what I will say, as I'm doing this on October 11th, on October 10th, the members, because she does have a group that you can be a member of, those members have first availability to the kit, and she starts that on October 10th. For anybody that's not a member, if there are kits still available, you will be able to purchase yours on October 15th. And yes, that is at midnight. All right, so make sure. So members do get that first in to make sure that they are able to get theirs. And then, of course, it is definitely open to the outside as long as supplies and kits last. Remember, we've got 2 kits going on here. We've got our main kit with all of the items that I worked with here, and then there's a mini kit with the pearlescent, the foiled paper, and the 2 stencils, if that's what you're interested in. So again, all of those links will be down below. Make sure you check out the inspiration for the other creators when it comes to this kit. If you have questions, make sure you leave those down below as well. Even if you have a question for Courtney, she keeps an eye on those as well, and she will be more than happy to come in and answer any questions at all. And I'm good with it because you all know how long it takes me to sometimes get back. All right. When it comes to, excuse me, subscribing, I'd love to have you here. So make sure you do hit that button, subscribe, make sure you ring the bell, make sure you hit all, make sure you get everything. If you choose the other one, you kind of have to make choices and decisions, and who wants to make that? So just make sure you choose all so that you know when the next video is live. Everyone, continue to enjoy your day, continue to stay safe and healthy as we continue through this journey together. And we are getting through it, absolutely, and I think it's wonderful. But remember what's most important for me, even if you just do it a little bit every day, always be creative, guys. Until next time.